Welcome back to the Uncensored Voice. This is Randolph Macias, your host. Today's guest, we have Marc LaHood running for as Republican nominee and candidate for Bexar County District Attorney. Welcome, Marc.
Thank you. Good morning.
And on his side, we have Chairman Jeff McManus. Thank you for attending, Chairman. I appreciate you sitting in and helping get the message across to our Bexar County voters for who's running and whatnot. So thank you for your time.
We need to get the information out on who our candidates are. So the Bexar County Republican Party here is joined with you and with other candidates to do some taping so it can be on our website and that the public can then go and learn more about our candidates, because it's all about education and information. So this is where we're starting here to bring our candidates into a public opportunity. Thank you, Marc, for being here today.
Hey, thank you, Jeff. Thank you both.
So, Marc, can you give us a brief biography? Have you always lived in San Antonio? Were you born here? And tell us the 411.
How far back do you want to
go? Back to your birth.
All right. Born and raised in San Antonio. I never wanted to be a lawyer. I actually wanted to be a teacher and join the military. My two older brothers always wanted to be lawyers. My dad's a lawyer. And about a month before my brother passed away, out of the blue, I just said, you know what, maybe I'll be a lawyer. And then when he passed away, I thought maybe that was God's sign. So,
Was that the driving force for you to pursue a profession in law?
My brother?
Yes.
Yeah, both. My pop, my brother, and then my oldest brother that passed away. But my dream has always been to work with my family.
That's very admirable, and I'm sure that Bexar County voters can appreciate that. Just wanted to see what your connection to San Antonio was, and obviously everybody knows your family very well as being a law family. And of course your brother being the former district attorney, I believe, of Bexar County.
And my dad's a former judge.
And former judge. And so my first question is, what is the greatest challenge that is facing Bexar County with respect to the Bexar County District Attorney's Office? What's on the top right now?
That's a hard question. I think it's twofold. One is the fact that we have a tremendous backlog, and we don't even know how big the backlog really is. And it ties to the second issue, which is, the leadership or the lack thereof that we've seen the last 3 years has resulted in thousands and thousands of cases that have not been handled. So the backlog is official backlog, unofficial backlog, and then the last one, which is what really opened my eyes, is, I'm a criminal defense attorney, and I gotta tell people, not guilties, dismissals, and weak pleas, they're good for business, but they're bad for our community. And so right now we just have a lack of leadership, and just cases and justice are falling through the cracks.
How long have you been practicing law? And was it always here in Bexar County?
Yeah. So I've been licensed for 15 years. But I practiced throughout the state, so I've practiced in probably 55 counties in Texas, all the way north, west, south, and east. And then I'm also licensed, and I've tried cases in federal court also.
And which leads me to my next question. What was the most rewarding experience of your career in law? You don't have to refer to a specific case or anything. What is the highlight of your time as a lawyer?
Without getting into attorney-client privilege, it would be the fact that I believe everyone becomes a lawyer. At least I became a lawyer to help and protect people. And there have been more than a few occasions where lives have been altered. I mean, people were wrongly accused or dealing with situations that I was able to help them. And, we have gotten them their children. They have been able to get married and have children. I mean, we have altered families' lives, not just on that case, but going forward. I would probably say that's the coolest part of my job.
There's a lot of unique things that pass your way in your career as an attorney, and so that's why I wanted to ask you that question. So various DAs in other states have been making news because of recall efforts by their constituency, and some are resigning because of the level of crime that has been spiraling out of control due to the reckless liberal policies, putting the public at great risk. Is Bexar County moving in that direction?
Of not enforcing laws?
Of the liberal policies such as the no bail or not prosecuting certain crimes, discretion.
Yes. Sadly, we all know what's going on. The reality is this, The current administration follows the same logic and the same agenda that we've seen San Francisco, LA, Chicago, Portland, Houston, basically all the major cities that are seeing these spikes in crime, and that they're following the same logic, which is they're using this concept called, justice reform to not prosecute, to not help people, to try and eliminate, well, not just reduce, but eliminate cash bail or the bail system. I'm sure Jeff will agree with this. I think relationships are all the same. The way we treat our children, the way that Jeff and I treat each other, the way we treat, actions have to have consequences. And if we take consequences away from actions, our behavior doesn't get better, it gets worse. And so, that was the other reason why I got in the race is, the last 3 years, seeing what's happened and how bad we've declined, and our crime, both property and violent crime, increases, and the brazenness of our criminals. If we don't stop it now, we are definitely headed towards the next San Francisco or the next LA. We're already on the way there.
And also in New York, as you recall, the bodega worker was immediately charged without the criminal, the alleged criminal. He no bail, and so the guy feared for his life. He left the city of New York immediately after that case had been dismissed or dropped. So that's what it leads to, unfortunately, because now he's not just going to go back into his store and start conducting business and then not expect some type of comeback from the criminal who keeps on getting let out over and over again. In one case, one individual was charged 100 times because of no bail. They just keep on committing the crime over and over again, and there is no consequence.
Yep.
And when does it stop?
Well, we have to stop it. Sorry to cut you off on that, but
no problem.
The problem, like what you're describing and what's going on and what this administration is doing, is instead of focusing on the job duties of justice, right? Justice to hold criminals accountable, protect the public, and make victims whole. Instead of focusing on that, they're focusing on this agenda that's aside from that. And when you take your eyes off the prize, right? If our only goal is justice, but now we're creating a new goalpost, we can't be surprised when we never hit the mark, and we keep deviating further and further away from that.
Thank you for that answer, Mark. I really appreciate that. It is well known that DA Gonzalez is not prosecuting low-level drug crimes, no trespassing cases, some, I think, street races, in some which cases people have died as a result of street racing and reckless driving, innocent bystanders, and maybe even the participants in the race. And it doesn't seem that there's any end in sight for that. And he has now also adopted a policy on abortion that will be in direct conflict with state law. My question is, will the Bexar County District Attorney's Office be remiss in its duty to enforce the law as written and cause a recall of its current office holder as a result?
Well, the recall effort is a different issue under the law, whether or not citizens and what the state constitution allows on that. But the short version is this, are they remiss in not enforcing the law? You already know the answer. The answer is in the question, yes. The DA's office is the chief law enforcement officer. I tell people, we don't have to like the law, but we have to enforce the law. When we start making exceptions for people to ignore the law that's on the books, the equivalent of that, of not just saying, okay, this law's on the books, I'm not going to enforce it. The equivalent is saying, I'm going to enforce laws that aren't on the books. And the reality is we have a system in place. We have our legislatures, petition our senators, get people, get the vote out and change the law if we're unhappy with it. But we can't allow our elected officials, especially law enforcement, to ignore their duties. It just creates further chaos.
And as far as a recall effort, it's in place. In November, this November is your opportunity to recall the law enforcement chief district attorney that doesn't enforce the law for our society's benefit. And you need to elect Marc LaHood as district attorney.
And thank you, Chairman, for letting us know about that, because it is very important as to what's going on currently with the incumbent. And I feel that a lot of my fellow Bexar County citizens feel disenfranchised by his policy of something called declination of duty, or declining to prosecute certain cases, which causes, for example, and this ties in with illegal immigration. Drug cartels know exactly where to go so they won't get charged. So if they can make it past all those counties, all the way up to Bexar County, guess where they camp out at? Right here in Bexar County. And because they know the district attorney will not prosecute low-level drug cases, and it's very easy on crime. So it attracts crime here in Bexar County, and Bexar County citizens have a right to be worried about that under the current DA administration. My next question then is castle doctrine. It's well known in Texas, and of course there are many law-abiding citizens here that exercise their Second Amendment rights here in Bexar County. And say if an intruder were to enter a property at night and attempt to forcibly enter someone's property, someone who may have children and a wife and are shot at that point in time, should they be worried that they will automatically be prosecuted, as was the case in most liberal-led counties?
So, it's a bigger question than that. I mean, short version is this: yes, we have a castle doctrine. We have the right to defend ourselves, our persons, our property, in defense of their person. What I can tell people is this: the biggest issue that we have dealing with law enforcement in any kind of shooting case is, instead of focusing on what the facts are, what the evidence, what the details that the law enforcement, the police officers uncover, instead of focusing on what that is and letting that make the decision on whether it was justified or not, what's happening is the law enforcement is focusing on the court of public opinion. And so if people are loud enough, if the media jumps on board, instead of focusing on that, again, they change their agenda. They're focusing on placating this angry mob, and that's the mistake. I mean, what I implore all law enforcement to do is focus on your job, do the duties, let the facts determine what your decision is. And if it's justified, have the courage and the fortitude to be able to say, look, the facts aren't there, it's justified. Or if it is, or if it isn't, do what the facts and the law requires.
That was an important issue that's been on a lot of people's minds that I've been talking to, and they wanted to get your opinion on that, because hopefully when you take office, there will be a very defined change of leadership under you versus the incumbent of the office currently. Are there any immediate changes that you would like to make to the Bexar County DA's office once elected? Any, like maybe say a pet project? I want to focus on this during my tenure.
Well, man, that's a big question. Unfortunately, the way I describe it is this. We already know on the books there's 8,000 backlogs, probably more now, and then unofficially it's 12 or 14 or 15,000 because of thousands of cases that aren't handled. The reality is, right now we're in a hole, and we have 4 years once we get in to try and dig out of that hole. The most immediate thing to focus on for me would be an ideology change in the office. And so, what's going on right now is the current administration has publicly said in countless interviews, I want to sever ties with law enforcement. I don't want to be beholden to them. I don't want to look like I'm favoring to them. If they endorse me, I'm going to be in their pocket, or whatever it is he says. That's the most ridiculous thing. Police officers and the DA's office are two sides of the same coin. They investigate and work a case up, and then they turn over their work for the DA to prosecute. We have to have a good working relationship. And even aside from the DA's office, police officers are the first line of defense. I mean, they're the ones that run towards danger. I don't know what happened when we started villainizing them, but we need to get back on track on focusing on the fact that these are brave men and women doing their job and working together to start investigating these crimes so we can hold criminals accountable. The second thing we would change is, like we've already talked about, he's made it a policy not to enforce laws. He's arbitrarily picked, heroin, meth, crack cocaine, fentanyl, large levels of marijuana. Doesn't matter what the facts are. Doesn't matter if you're pulling it out. They're just being dismissed. There are trespassing, criminal mischief, whether it's the homeless population or not, where now, lawful people are terrified to either run their business or go to work because they're being accosted because they know that these laws aren't being enforced. So issue number 2 immediately is saying, look, if the law's in the books, we're going to enforce it. That's what our job is to do, enforce the law. If we want to change it, we're talking about change it. The third thing is we have to lead the employees. You know, Bexar County right now, I think, has 27 vacancies for DAs. And the biggest complaint that I hear talking with the district attorney or the ADAs, assistant DAs, is, you know, I can't do X, Y, and Z because I'm afraid, or we have to pass it up the chain. Well, the reality is if we have enough faith in our prosecutors to try cases, but then we tie their hands because we're afraid that if they work a case out or they do what the facts require or the facts suggest in the best interest of justice, it's going to look bad. You know, my humble philosophy is if an elected official is worried about being reelected versus doing their job duties, you should be there to begin with. And so those three ideology changes, I'm going to change immediately, because we have to get back to the business of protecting our community, finding these violent criminals, getting rid of them, making our victims whole, and then trying collectively to prevent further crime from happening as best we can by working together.
Police
Sorry, that was
officer.
a mouthful.
No, that's
Sorry.
fine. I appreciate it.
That was good. I mean, it's important to get this message across to everybody, because everybody sits back there and they think, oh, that's the way it is. But it's not. It's the way it is, but it doesn't have to stay that way.
Yeah.
It can be changed.
Well, we need to change it, because if we don't, we're going to go over that same cycle we're seeing. You know, I asked people, I said, you know, I believe that Bexar County as a whole, we share some collective ideologies, right? At the most basic level, we love our family, we love our loved ones. The majority of us want to work, we want to work in peace. The only way we get there is by saying, look, enough's enough. We have to get back to the business of the fundamentals. I mean, I tell people my campaign at the most basic level is getting back to the fundamentals of what's worked and how to get justice done.
So, in a nutshell, Mark, what is your plan to keep Bexar County citizens safe and hold those who break the law as written held accountable for their misdeeds?
Well, I mean, the last question basically answered that.
Okay.
You know, one of the other big issues I think on top of that is it goes back to leadership. And so, you know, even if we have 27 DA spots that are vacant, well, you know, Joe's a lawyer. His first assistant, his chiefs, they're all lawyers. I mean, you know, it's not pretty, it's not glamorous, but if a job needs to be done, we need to get back to the mindset of we got to do what needs to be done, not worried about, you know, a title or a position. You know, I don't recommend in a perfect world they be doing the more administrative stuff, but if we have a backlog, which we know we do, and we have vacancies, we need to fill that spot. We need to get back to focusing on that, you know, because when we get out of this backlog, when we get out of this position of, man, we're making these offers not because the facts require it, not because justice required, but because we can't handle it all. If we're losing our trials, I mean, you know, I'm pulling the records, but I haven't seen them. But I've talked to bailiffs in 5 or 6 courtrooms. They're saying the current DA's office is losing 8 out of 10 trials. I know for a fact I was set for trial right before early voting. There was 11 cases set for trial that day, 11. The DA's office was ready on 0. Not a single case. I don't care if you're understaffed. At least pick, you know, be a pragmatist, pick 2 cases to get ready for. They weren't ready on any of them. Those cases get dismissed. I mean, you know, the reality is the only way we're going to make Bexar County safe is to get the justice system back on track. So now people know, hey, if I commit a crime, I'm going to be held accountable. You know, that's what it boils down to. Now, unfortunately, that is not going to be an immediate fix, because it takes time for that to kind of resonate through the county. Mm-hmm. But those changes can become immediate. You know, the solidarity, the unity with law enforcement, with the talking with our citizens and finding out. You know, have my eyes open. You know, I've talked to people north, south, west, and east. The one thing, I don't care whether it's Stone Oak, Deep South Side, or wherever it is, the one thing that people keep focusing on, all of it, is the homeless are danger because of their mental health issues and their drug addictions. There's needles, there's violent crimes. Property crimes are rampant right now, both burglary of a vehicle and breaking entries. You know, people can feel that crime is increasing. People can feel that it's more dangerous. People can feel, you don't need stats to know that, you know, criminals are more emboldened than ever before.
especially now in this day and age.
God,
But
it's terrifying, brother.
It's nationwide, and hopefully it's not going to reach the level that it has been here in Bexar County, and certainly not under your tenure, I would hope. And so my last question would be, if you could talk directly into the camera and tell the Bexar County voter, what is your pledge to them?
I would say I have a couple pledges. I mean, first and foremost is to not allow any agenda, I don't care what it is, I don't care who's behind it, to get in the middle of seeking justice. You know, I know firsthand what it's like to have an agenda derail justice, that a jury heard the evidence, that the facts required, and they get sidelined. That's the most frustrating, demoralizing. You know, we trust our law enforcement to protect us and do what's right. And so pledge number one is to never let any agenda get aside from enforcing the law. The second is that no matter what decision is made in that office, we're always going to be able to explain to it. Maybe we won't all agree on the reasoning, but we're all going to be able to say, this office made this decision because of A, B, and C, or X, Y, and Z. You know, I think the biggest issue that I hear from people that are frustrated is there's no communication between the DA's office, both with law enforcement or with victims. And, you know, I believe that miscommunication is the root of all evil, which is, even if you don't like to hear what we have to say, you have to at least have that dialogue, because people want answers, they need answers. And I think that's another frustration that we're having. And the third pledge is to never fold, never yield, and never quit. You know, someone told me that Joe said one time, dealing with family violence, that, it is what it is. That should never be our response to protecting our citizens. It should never be, it is what it is. If something's not working, then we have to sit back, talk to people and say, hey, you know what? Okay, plan A is not working. Well, let's come up with plan B. And if plan B doesn't work, let's come up with plan C. We can never stop fighting to protect. We can never get complacent. We have to always confront the problem to protect our fellow people and ourselves. So,
Chairman, do you have any final words?
Final words. The solution to a lot of our problems right now is for the American citizen to exercise their duty and obligation to vote. There has been too much silence from the citizens sitting on the sideline, believing that their leaders are going to take care of the issues. It's obvious that they're not. We just had our constitutional republic attacked by the FBI. We need to have strong law enforcement people involved that will not only enforce the law, but obey the law and the law of the Constitution and the law of civility. So I encourage everybody out there to come out and vote in November and vote for a good conservative Republican. Marc LaHood, I thank you for being here today, and I look forward to continue working with you as we have worked together.
Amen.
Since we both started running in the primaries.
Me too.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you, Mark. And what is your website so that the voters can contact you, or if they want to donate or volunteer?
Thank you. The last thing is our website is marclahood.com, Mark with a C. And you can go to the website for information, to donate, to volunteer. Every little effort works. It's not a matter of if we can win in November. It's just a matter of doing it, and we will win. So look forward to working with you and fighting with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And once again, this is the Uncensored Voice. Just a reminder, folks, that Election Day is November the 8th. Early voting is October the 24th until November the 4th. And the last day to register, do it before October 14th. I've heard October 11th. I'm not for sure. One of those two. Let's go with the earlier date. How about that? No later than October 11th. Register to vote if you haven't registered already. Urge all those of y'all in your households. If you haven't registered to vote, please register. If you have voted, please vote. We need to increase voter output exponentially. So urge you to vote. Don't forget to vote. And hopefully we have a vote for Marc LaHood for District Attorney of the great county of Bexar. Once again, thank you, gentlemen, for your time. May God bless America and the great state of Texas.
God bless you. Thank you.
Randolph, and thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.